from a view known as rationalism, and this is the idea that knowledge, right, specifically propositional knowledge, does not come from the outside world, but instead comes from something internal to us or innate, something that we are born with. And this specifically has been tied to notions of the mind, which is sometimes referred to in the history of philosophy as the soul, because a lot of philosophers thought that the soul was actually the part of your being that was able to engage in reason and rationality, and so the mind and the soul were sort of tied together. Now, more contemporary views, would distinguish like the brain from the soul. So that's not what the rationalists are talking about. When they talk about your mind, they're not talking about your brain. They're talking maybe something in terms of like what we would now call consciousness, right? That sort of thing that is able to think and to engage in ideas, right, and form thoughts and perhaps the basis of your personality, right? So that's sort of what they're talking about here. And the idea with rationalism is that knowledge can't come from experience, because our experience is always changing and differing and in fact leading us to make mistakes. That true knowledge can only come from our souls or our minds, because those things are able to engage in reason and discover absolute truths, right? Truth in this sense being such an extreme objective thing that it never changes. And so if I form a belief about the table sitting in front of me, that might be true for the time being, right? If I think this table is brown, but eventually the table won't be brown, right? Because experience in the physical world is going to involve, decay. And so this table will not be brown forever, and also this table hasn't been brown for the entire history, right? There was a time at which this table didn't exist, or when it was being constructed, when it wasn't brown. So that's not a big T truth, so to speak, right? That's just, it's true temporarily in the physical world. And so because truths in the physical world are always only temporarily true, that can't count as knowledge. It needs to be something else, right? So in this case, mathematical truths, right, would count as knowledge. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4, right, no matter what. A triangle will always be composed, right, of 3 internal angles which equal 180 degrees, right? So these types of truths which can never change. And so the only explanation for how you could know those things, right, is going to be tied to a religious conception of the soul, because it will often have to do with, those truths existing somewhere beyond the physical plane, which your body can't travel to. And so we have historically understood the soul as being the only thing that could access, right, wherever these truths exist. Right, so these are rationalists. And they think, again, right, that all truths, in this case, can't come from experience.